Welcome to Mr. Riley's Irish Heritage. Was James Whitcomb Riley actually Irish? James Whitcomb Riley and his take on his ancestry. James Whitcomb Riley thought that his family was of Irish descent through his father, Reuben Alexander Riley, a very Irish-sounding name. He often thought that his father's demeanor and temperament reflected his Irish roots. In fact, according to Elizabeth Van Allen in her book, James Whitcomb Riley, A Life, Riley believed that the main traits of his father's personality were strongly Irish. He was convinced that Reuben's mental and physical zest in life came from his Irish roots. The poet clung to the idea that his father's family came from Ireland. "I'm Irish from the word go. I show it in my tastes, I show it in my face. You know, is a map of Ireland in itself, and I show it in my name." James Whitcomb Riley, however, was not Irish, as he thought. His family background was actually German and English. Riley was actually a corrupted form of the German surname Ryland or Rylant. In fact, Reuben Alexander Riley was English and German, born on the 7th of June, 1819 in Pennsylvania Dutch country of Bedford County, Pennsylvania. He was the fifth child of Andrew and Margaret Riley, according to James Whitcomb Riley, A Life by Elizabeth Van Allen. His parents were Andrew and Margaret Riley, and Andrew's father was James Ryland or Rylant. Riley would always tell people that he believed that his great-grandfather James came from Cork County, Ireland. However, the records show that there is no James Riley from Cork County, Ireland in Pennsylvania, in that area where Andrew and Reuben were born, but there is a James Rylant. James Rylant married Rebecca Harvey, whose family was English and possibly Quaker. And they ended up having children, and one of their children was Andrew, who was Riley's grandfather. A lot of the genealogy research that Edmund Idle, James Whitcomb Riley's nephew, hired a genealogist to do came up with James Ryland as well. So, unfortunately for Riley, he does not have Irish heritage. Andrew's wife, Margaret, so James Whitcomb Riley's grandmother, was born in 1793, and she was the daughter of John Slick and Elizabeth Wilson Slick. John Slick's family was also of German heritage and came to Bedford County via New Jersey and Maryland. Margaret's mother, Elizabeth Wilson, was Scotch and English. Riley's paternal grandparents may have known each other since childhood, as both the Slicks and Rylands lived 8 miles north of Bedford town, not far from Philadelphia. Here, Andrew Riley owned a small wedge-shaped farm commonly called Dutch Corner. James Whitcomb Riley's uncle, John S. Riley, remembered that his father frequently talked of hauling oats to Philadelphia in wagons. Andrew and Margaret Riley left Pennsylvania with their 5 living children between 1821 and 1825. They first settled in Montgomery County, Ohio, near Dayton, and then moved further west to Randolph County, Indiana, near the small town of Windsor several years later. In Ohio and Indiana, Margaret gave birth 8 more times. Over the course of marriage, she had 14 children, 9 of whom would survive to adulthood. Andrew Riley ended up dying in November 1840 at the age of 50. Margaret would end up outliving her husband by many years, and James Whitcomb Riley would later remember his grandmother, Margaret, fondly. Here's a look at the Riley family tree. So you see James Whitcomb Riley in the middle, with Reuben, his father, and Elizabeth right above him, and you continue to go back. You see James Ryland right there and Rebecca Harvey. So James Whitcomb Riley's heritage is mostly German, English, Welsh. It was not until Andrew, James's grandfather, that you actually get the name Riley. Andrew's the one who changed the last name to Riley. So, what does Ryland mean? Ryland meaning is a topographic name for someone who lives by an area of land where rye was grown, in Middle English, rye, land, lond, or lived at a place called Ryeland with the same meaning. The singular form is often a later alteration of the plural form Ryelands. That is from Ancestry.com. That's their definition of it. Middle English, if people hear that, they go, well, doesn't that mean Ryeland was English? Not necessarily. That can be used in Germany as well. Middle English, English itself derives from German. So we know that this particular Ryeland group was from Germany. James Whitcomb Riley's grandfather, Andrew, as I mentioned in the slide with the family tree, did change his last name to Riley. So the original spelling of the family last name was Rylent with a T, and then it became Ryland with just the D. Andrew, by the time he's moving west, decided, for various reasons, most of them we don't know, he ended up going ahead and changing it to Riley, which was a little bit more English, obviously English, Irish, definitely more Anglicized, which tells me that he wasn't really wanting to show his German heritage for some reason, or he just found it easier to go with Riley, because that was easier to spell. So that's two reasons why Andrew may have changed the family last name. And Riley, in his life, James Whitcomb Riley in his life, did admit that his father, Reuben, had grown up speaking German before he spoke English. So in Elizabeth and Allen's book, James Whitcomb Riley Alive, he said that he admitted his father was born a Pennsylvania Dutchman and that he had spoke a German dialect before he even spoke English. Even though he was told by his older relatives that the last name came from the more German-sounding Ryland, Riley was stubborn and still held to the Irish roots, claiming to people that his great-grandfather James came from Cork County, Ireland, even though we know that's not true. Riley's mother, Elizabeth Marine Riley, as you can see on this picture, was primarily of English and Welsh descent. The Marine family had Quakers in their ancestry, and family tradition held that the Marines were originally Huguenots who fled France during the second half of the 17th century. This may or may not be correct. Records do demonstrate, however, that while the Quakers are true, proving the French Huguenots has led to be a little bit inconclusive. Elizabeth Marine was born to John Marine Sr., and her mother was Frances Jones, the daughter of John Jones, a North Carolina plantation owner. The Jones were of Welsh origin. Marine, who was a merchant farmer and Methodist preacher, set up housekeeping with his wife in Marlborough District of South Carolina, but later moved to adjacent Richmond County, North Carolina, where Elizabeth was born, and she was the 10th of 11 children born on the 16th of October, 1823. The Marine family came to Indiana from North Carolina sometime after Elizabeth's birth during the 1820s. Marine supposedly moved north because he objected to the institution of slavery. He freed the slaves who worked his plantation in North Carolina, but many of them came with him to Wayne County, Indiana, and he joined his older brothers, one of who was the county's first white settler. James Whitcomb Riley remembers the Marine family fondly. The Rileys had William Huff, his cousin, who's the son of Elizabeth's sister. He lived with the Rileys and learned how to be a lawyer from Reuben. And James Whitcomb Riley remembered his grandfather, Marine, coming for visits, smoking in front of the fireplace of the Riley home in Greenfield, and he would make smoke rings that drifted straight from him and dipped down gracefully before they went up the chimney, and he would do that by the hour, according to Elizabeth Van Allen's James Whitcomb Riley, A Life. So James Whitcomb Riley had some very interesting genealogy. There's a lot more to get into, but the farther you go into it, the more exciting things you find. But the main question, was he Irish? No, James Whitcomb Riley was not Irish. But his family history was just as interesting. So thank you for coming to the James Whitcomb Riley Boyhood Home today to check out this exhibit. If for some reason you are not coming to see it, but you have stopped by on our YouTube page, thank you. Give us a like, give us a subscribe, and we appreciate you coming and checking us out. So until next time, my name is Marissa Purcell. I'm the head curator here, and thanks for listening.